chapter 6, entitled Jnana Yoga, text number 2. Yan sanyasamati prahor yogantan vidipandava dahyas sanyas sankalpo yogi bhavati kaschana. What is called renunciation, you should know to be the same as yoga, or linking oneself with the Supreme, O son of Pandu. For one can never become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Real sannyas yoga, or bhakti, means that one should know his constitutional position as the living entity and act accordingly. The living entity has no separate, independent identity. He is the marginal energy of the Supreme. When he is entrapped by material energy, he is conditioned, and when he is Krishna conscious or aware of the spiritual energy, then he is in his real and natural state of life. Therefore, when one is in complete knowledge, one ceases all material sense gratification or renounces all kinds of sense gratificatory activities. This is practiced by the yogis who restrain the senses from material attachment. But a person in Krishna consciousness has no opportunity to engage his senses in anything which is not for the purpose of Krishna. Therefore, a Krishna conscious person is simultaneously a sannyasi and a yogi. The purpose of knowledge and of restraining the senses, as prescribed in the jnana and yoga processes, is automatically served in Krishna consciousness. If one is unable to give up the activities of his selfish nature, then jnana and yoga are of no avail. The real aim is for a living entity to give up all selfish satisfaction and to be prepared to satisfy the Supreme. A Krishna-conscious person has no desire for any kind of self-enjoyment. He is always engaged for the enjoyment of the Supreme. One who has no information of the Supreme must therefore be engaged in self-satisfaction, because no one can stand on the platform of inactivity. All purposes are perfectly served by the practice of Krishna consciousness. Verse again, Yan sanyasam eti prahur yogantan vidipandava nahyas sanyasta sankalpo yogi bhavati kaschana. What is called renunciation, you should know to be the same as yoga, or linking oneself with the Supreme, O son of Pandu. For one can never become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. Now, the word renunciation is not generally a very popular word. There are certain words you should avoid in social interaction. Okay? Renunciation is one of them. Very bad word. Very bad word. Definitely don't use it when you're talking to your parents. And there's some other bad words too. Very, very bad words. Like austerity. Terrible word. Right? What other bad words? Austerity.
Celibacy?
Huh?
Celibacy?
Celibacy. Oh, that's a really bad word. Horrible word. It's one of the worst.
Charity.
What?
Charity.
Charity? No, charity's okay, especially if you give it to me. So. People don't mind charity. No, actually, people are proud of charity, right? If they give some charity, they become very proud. Yeah, charity's okay. What else?
Vegetarian?
No. What?
Vegetarian?
What?
Vegetarian?
Vegetarian? Well, that's used to be really a horrible word, but it's not so bad. No, not as bad.
What do you call absence of intoxication? What do you call it?
Absence of sense gratification, but that's like renunciation.
Not
No, but there's one really bad word, the worst word. The worst word. Who knows what it is?
Love for God.
Huh?
Love for God.
No.
That's 3 words.
No, one word. That's 3 words. One word, just one word.
What about God?
Huh?
God.
No, that's not so bad. No, this word strikes terror in the hearts of everyone.
Servant?
Submission.
Submission's pretty close.
Humility.
Huh? No, he's getting close.
Surrender?
Surrender! Right? Nobody wants to hear about surrender, right? Huh?
He offered.
Surrender.
What's
Surrender
that?
to Krishna.
He's-
Hamid said that.
He said what?
Hamid said that. Surrender.
He said surrender. Yeah. Yeah, surrender. Yeah. Because, you know, when people think of surrender, they think you're going to be exploited. And usually you are. You're going to be tortured if you surrender. Right? That's why they want you to surrender, so they can torture you. But this kind of surrender is different. Surrender to Krishna because Krishna is looking out for the best for everybody. When we surrender to Krishna, actually, we're torturing ourselves in material life. We're surrendering anyway. Everybody's surrendering anyway, right? But you're surrendering in a way that actually is causing you problems and torture and suffering, right? But it's ironic when we surrender to Krishna, then everything changes. You see? So, anyway, renunciation. This topic here is about renunciation. Yeah, people have a misunderstanding what renunciation is. Because they think renunciation is giving up stuff, giving up things, right? That's normally what people think. Like sometimes people ask us when they, you know, what do I have to give up to join your movement? Sometimes I tell them, you don't have to give up anything, except you have to give up your misery. And it's amazing how people are so attached to being miserable. Or so attached to the things which cause them misery. Incredible. No, I can't get that. You know, it's ruining my life, but I can't give it up. Congratulations. Okay. So anyway, no, real renunciation is described here. Real renunciation is the same as yoga, or becoming connected with the Supreme. Because all you're renouncing is you renounce your desire to enjoy independently of God. That's all. It doesn't mean that you're not going to enjoy. Actually, you enjoy more. I mean, I had no idea what enjoyment was until I joined the Hare Krishna movement. I was desperately trying to enjoy it in so many ways, and it wasn't working out. I couldn't understand why. But actually, you enjoy more when you join the Hare Krishna movement. Just like today, we were out on the street chanting Hare Krishna. And we were obviously happy, right? Any idiot could see we're happy by chanting Hare Krishna. There was this man and a girl, I don't know if she was his daughter or what, but, you know, they stopped in front of the chanting party. They were obviously somewhat captivated, right? And then someone went up and asked if they would like to, I don't know, Mother Sanandi, what'd you ask them?
He said, have you heard about mantra meditation?
Yeah. And then they said, no, I'm not interested. More or less, right? That's, you know, they're standing there hypnotized for 5 minutes, you know, and no, I'm not interested. It's ridiculous. Obviously you're interested. Otherwise, why would you be standing here? Right? So anyway, yeah. Renunciation means to renounce the desire to enjoy independently of Krishna. Doesn't mean to renounce enjoyment. You're going to enjoy more by being connected to Krishna, not less. And actually, the thing is, why? Because Prabhupada explains it here. He says, just a minute. Yeah, because when he's in Krishna consciousness, this is his real and natural state of life. It doesn't matter what your opinion is or what your so-called philosophy is. The reality is everybody's natural position is to be connected with Krishna. That's the reality. It's not a question of my belief and your belief and all this stupid stuff. You know. What does belief have to do with reality? Can anybody tell me what's the connection between belief and reality? That's what I thought. There's no connection. Like for instance, what if I believe, I firmly believe with all my heart and soul, I believe that the walls in this room are red. I firmly believe it. And you can't say that it's not true, because that would be religious prejudice. Right? I'm starting a movement actually around my philosophy that the walls are red. It's called the Red Wall Movement. Anybody's welcome to join. You can sign up after the lecture. Right? I already have some followers. Other people are just as crazy as I am. I mean, in any language, the word may be different, but everybody knows the walls in this room are, well, more or less white. Okay? They're not red. So the belief has nothing to do with it. So stupid. People go, well, my belief is... No, my belief is different. Who cares for your belief? Who cares for your opinion? Who are you? Maha nobody. You know, you've been occupying about half a square meter of space on this planet for 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or maybe 60, some of us, years, and then you're very proud, you know, well, my opinion is... Of course, I'm suffering like every day of my life, but my opinion is... Everybody's a big expert, you know, on philosophy. Ask any taxi driver. They all know philosophy, right? They don't know how to solve the problems of life. They can't solve anything, but they're big experts. You know, to get his license to drive the... to drive the taxi, you have to have a license. But to speak about the absolute truth, the biggest topic of all existence, you know, you don't need a license. Any fool can just open his mouth and start flapping my opinion, my belief. Ridiculous. You know, to do anything practically, you need a certificate, you need a degree, you need a license, right? Isn't it? You know, but to speak about the absolute truth, and anybody, it's wide open field. So anyway, belief has nothing to do with it. Sorry. The reality is that every living being, every soul, is an eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose name happens to be Krishna. Okay, so in Krishna consciousness, you're not giving up enjoyment, but you're actually reconnecting with that which will actually give you enjoyment. Instead of all this other stuff that you're, this make-believe enjoyment. It's not really enjoyable at all. The so-called enjoyment is very shallow, first of all. It's not really very fulfilling. That's why you have to keep going from one to another to another. And not only that, it doesn't last long. Or even if it lasts long, but it won't last forever. Because it's temporary, because it's material. Like, yeah, so anyway. So, yeah, so Srila Prabhupada gave an example about, well, this is more or less the way he said it. I mean, this is more or less the example. Like, let's say somebody robs a bank. Okay? The money's not his. He's taking it out of the bank. Right? Okay. Now let's say you got some crazy guy on the street corner in New York. And he's saying, and he stands in front of the Bank of New York and he says, I renounce all this. Yeah, well, la-di-da, you renounce it all, but it's not yours to renounce. It's not yours to renounce, and it's not yours to steal. You understand? It has nothing to do with you. So, this is the same way with everything that exists. Nothing belongs to us. We have no right to take it and use it for our sense gratification, and we have no, how do you say? We have no right to say, I give it up or renounce it up. Renounce it. It's not yours to renounce. Sorry. But everything belongs to Krishna, therefore everything is meant to be used in Krishna's service. Everything. Your words are meant to be used in Krishna's service. Your body is meant to be used in Krishna's service. Your time is meant to be used in Krishna's service. Your intelligence is meant to be used in Krishna's service. Your clothing is meant to be used in Krishna's service. Your family is meant to be used in your car, your house. Everything is meant to be used in Krishna's service. That's renunciation. And when one actually does that and stops speculating, well, I don't know, maybe this or maybe that, you know, if he just does it, he'll be happy. Now there is a concession involved here, I have to admit. Because Prabhupada, in this purport, he makes some very strong statements. Oh, sorry. Yeah, he makes some very strong statements. He says that, yeah, when one is in complete knowledge, one ceases all material sense gratification, or renounces all kinds of sense gratificatory activities. Okay. Can anybody here imagine renouncing all sense gratification? Raise your hand if you can imagine renouncing everything, all sense gratification, just fully absorbing yourself in Krishna service, just totally 100%, no sense gratification at all.
No prasadam?
Huh?
No prasadam?
No, but prasadam isn't sense gratification.
No Facebook?
Prabhupada said taking prasadam is an austerity, especially when certain people cook, you know, then it's a real austerity. But, but Prabhupada said that taking prasadam is an austerity. You know why? Because it means you're not eating things that are not offered to Krishna. Therefore, it's an austerity. Actually, everything in Krishna consciousness, just like everything is renunciation in Krishna consciousness, everything is austerity in Krishna consciousness. Yeah. So, no. Yeah, you can't count that. So, most people cannot imagine giving up all kinds of sense gratification. So, Srila Prabhupada covered that point. You see, it's very important to study as much as possible all of Srila Prabhupada's teachings, because he says different things in different places. And if you take one thing out of context, you might get really confused. So he gave an example. He gave an example of salt. Cooking. When you cook, you use salt, right? Madan Gopal, that's the name?
Yes,
Yeah.
use salt.
Right, use salt, right? Because what will happen if you don't use salt? Well, it'll be unofferable to start with, but also nobody will want to eat it, right? So Prabhupada said that in cooking you need to use salt. So in the same way, just to function in this world, just to live in this body, everyone needs a certain amount of sense gratification. Yeah.
No, isn't it in nectar? Is it nectar construction? It's to keep the fever.
What's that?
Is it to keep the fever balanced? That you should not, if you renounce too little or too much, it's not. It's like about to keep the fever in balance. Is it in the purport?
No, you have the temperature. The body temperature has to be at a certain level.
No, it's not like that.
Oh, no.
It's just like a picture. That if you take away everything,
Oh.
it's like having too little body temperature.
Yeah,
If you
that's what I
take-
mean.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you have to keep the body temperature at a
Yeah,
certain
so
level.
you have to
I mean-
build balanced sense gratification.
Yeah, mostly the problem is that people get too high a temperature, but sometimes they get too low a temperature. So that can also happen. Yeah, it has to be balanced. So, and like just like in eating, different people have a taste for a different amount of salt in their sabji or their soup or something, right? Therefore, a lot of times when meals are served, there's a little salt served on the side, so the person can add salt according to his taste. Unfortunately, he can't take away the salt if the cook put in too much. But anyway, that's a different topic. The point is that everybody has a different taste for how much salt, right? So, in the same way, Prabhupada said that just to function in this body, to be able to be psychologically peaceful, you have to have a little bit of salt. But let us remember that salt is not one of the main ingredients. You know, it's not like, you know, you don't have a salt sabji. You might have a carrot and cauliflower sabji, but not, you know, Not so, it's just not all salt with a little bit of carrots. So materialists mean they're into salt substitutes. You know, they just want the salt, just the sense gratification. Krishna consciousness, forget it. You know, just salt. That's all they want. So, but what happens if you put too much salt in the substitute, Madan Gopal?
It doesn't taste so nice.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Krishna probably won't accept it, and maybe though. And then nobody will want to eat it because it's disgusting. So that's what happens when you make your life centered around sense gratification. It's disgusting. And the point is that yes, you need a little bit of salt, but it should be a minor part of the preparation. So everyone needs a little bit of sense gratification. But usually people don't need as much as they think they need. You know, using your point about the fever, Prabhupada told a story. Want to hear a story from Prabhupada?
Yes.
Prabhupada told a story about a very wealthy man whose wife became very sick. And her maidservant also became sick. So the man called the doctor to come and check them out. So the first thing he did was he took the lady's temperatures, right? And I forget what the temperatures was. They were high. He told the man's wife that he said, yes, you are very sick. He said, your temperature is 40 degrees. And then he said, and your maidservant's temperature is 41 degrees. And she said, how is that possible? I'm the lady of the house. She's just a maidservant. You're saying my temperature is only 40, hers is 41? How can that be? So, Srila Prabhupada said, this is like material life, you know. They want to increase the temperature, always increase the temperature, you know. They want to be as agitated as possible, as materially disturbed as possible, as right? Anyhow, devotee's mood is opposite. Renunciation, yeah. So renunciation means that nothing is mine, everything belongs to Krishna. Now, what else did Prabhupada say here? Yeah. Yeah. Now, another point Prabhupada makes is that the living entity, or the soul, inside the body, is eternally marginal. So marginal means that he's not exactly the spiritual energy and not the material. Actually, the soul is spiritual. In one sense, there are two kinds of energies of the Lord. There's spiritual energy and material energy. Spiritual energy is eternal and transcendental. Material energy means in this world. Okay? But within the spiritual energy, there's a special kind of energy called marginal. Although it's essentially the spiritual energy, but it's tiny, and it has a tendency to get covered by the material energy. That's why it's called marginal. It's like on the edge. An example is the beach. Okay, the beach is essentially part of the land. But when the tide comes in, the ocean tide, everybody knows what tide means? Anton, you know what tide means? Okay. When the tide comes in, it covers the beach. Okay? So then the beach becomes part of the ocean. Therefore it's marginal. It's on the edge. It's essentially part of the land, but it gets covered by the ocean. So we're like that. The tiny living entities, we're like that. That we're essentially spiritual. But because we're marginal, we have the tendency to be covered by illusion. Okay? And we're drowning in this illusion, just like the beach is covered by the ocean. Okay. But there's, of course, there are a few differences between us and the beach. One difference in particular is the beach doesn't have any choice. We are very fortunate. We do have a choice, and we can choose. to put ourselves under the spiritual energy or under the material energy. And we can't blame anybody else for the choices that we make. We can decide. We have to decide. At every second we can decide. Okay, that's what it means to be a human being. To decide to place ourselves under the influence or control of the spiritual energy, not the material energy. Why? Because when we put ourselves under the under the control of the material energy, the result is guaranteed suffering. Congratulations. But when we put ourselves under the control of the spiritual energy, the result is guaranteed ecstasy. Okay, let's see what else Prabhupada says here. Now, Prabhupada says that a person in Krishna consciousness has no opportunity to engage his senses in anything which is not for the purpose of Krishna. If you're always engaged in Krishna service, right, then it precludes doing anything else, because you're already engaged. But if you don't engage the senses, everything, senses, money, time, intelligence, everything in Krishna service, then it's looking for something to be engaged in, right? The intelligence is looking for some nonsense to plan, right? Make a strategy for some sense gratification. Or if you're not using your money for Krishna, then it's like, we have this expression, burning a hole in your pocket. You understand? Your money's there, because it's there you think, well, I got to use it, you know. Otherwise, why do I have it? So then you're always thinking how to use my money. Because you don't use it for Krishna, then, okay, use it for something else. You know, beer, drugs, movies, whatever, right? Something stupid, some waste of time. So, but if you give all your money to Krishna, use all your money for Krishna, especially to buy Srila Prabhupada's books, then you won't have any money left. It's fantastic. Then you don't have to worry about it anymore, right? That's what I did. When I first started associating with the Hare Krishna devotees, well, you want to hear the story?
Yeah.
Okay. I was in an impersonal yoga society, desperately trying to become God. That's what they were teaching. Right? Meditating and smiling all the time. That's one of the requirements. You have to smile all the time. Everybody smiles. And really trying to convince myself that I'm God, you know. But somehow or other I wasn't becoming convinced. But anyhow, one day the Hare Krishna devotees came. And in that city, they didn't have a temple. They were living in a tent on the beach, 4 of them. And they asked if they could stay in our ashram. So impersonalism means it's all one. So we thought, okay, it's all one. Sure, you can stay in our ashram. Big mistake. Anyway, they were staying in our ashram, chanting Hare Krishna all the time. And the reason they were in our city was because they were going to put on a Govardhan Puja festival. But typical Hare Krishnas, you know, they had big ideas but no facilities. No money, no nothing. Just big plans. Yeah, we're going to put on a big festival. They didn't have a place to live. They had no money, you know, but they're going to put on a big festival. So anyhow, they were staying in our ashram. And you know, they made this plan, they made this menu. Actually, they were planning exactly according to the menu in the Krishna book. You know, Krishna tells his father what items should be in the feast. The first, they had to start preparing a few days in advance because they were preparing for a few hundred people. And so I think the first preparation they were making was the sweet rice. And so the leader of this group, I mean, this guy, he was so angelic. He was just like an angel. You couldn't believe it. He was just like the sweetest guy. I mean, I'd never met anybody like this. He was just incredible. He was so friendly and so gentle and so nice. And so he came to me one day. I was the manager of the ashram, the manager and the treasurer. And he said, you know, today we're going to start preparing the feast. And we're going to start by preparing sweet rice. Now, we got some donations. So we got all the ingredients we need for this preparation. We got the rice, and we have the sugar. Well, we're just missing one ingredient, the milk. But we have all the rest. There's just this one ingredient. And we don't need very much. Oh, probably only about 50 liters. He had this huge pot. I mean, it was unbelievable. I'd never seen a pot like this. You know, it was like, I don't know, it was like 1.5 meters high or something, and like this. You know, they were going to cook this feast on our little stove. You know, one of these little stoves that you have in somebody's apartment, you know, with just 4 burners. You know, you just put it on all 4 burners. And he stood on a chair because otherwise he couldn't reach it. So he was asking if we could just donate enough money for the milk. So, you know, my mood was, I was a little grumpy. But he was so sweet, so nice, I just couldn't resist. He just convinced me. So I gave him enough money for the milk. So then they were making the sweet rice. Next day it was something else. Yeah, we have all the ingredients, we just need them. And then one day was the halva. We have all the ingredients we need. We have the semolina, we have the sugar, we're just missing the butter. 25 kilos should do it. So then he ended up emptying our treasury. We had nothing left. Literally. And then he asked me if I had any money of my own. Unfortunately, I did. I had some saved in my bank account. So I ended up giving him all my money. And by the time of the festival, the ashram had no money, I had no money, completely broke. But it was fantastic because then I had no opportunity to do any nonsense. And also because I didn't have anything left, there was only one place to go. The Hare Krishna temple. Of course, besides that, there were a few other factors too. Because these Hare Krishna people, they were staying with us for like, I don't know, 10 days or something, maybe more. And every morning at 5 o'clock, they were having a big kirtan, which the neighbors didn't seem to appreciate. And so by the time the festival was over, we were being evicted from our ashram. So I had no money. I'd already given up my job. My car had fallen apart. And now I had no place to live. So, but I had become interested in the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. So I phoned the temple president in Honolulu. He had met me one time. I'd never been to a temple. I'd never been to a Hare Krishna temple. I just met these devotees. But he had met me, and I asked if I could just come and visit the temple, stay at the temple for a couple of weeks and just study the philosophy. Because I didn't have any money left to buy the books, right? And he said, yeah, sure, come along. Of course, that was another big mistake. Because if you ever want to study Srila Prabhupada's books, the last place to go is a Hare Krishna temple. Because they'll keep you so engaged, you won't have any time for reading. But I didn't know that at the time. So anyway, yeah, so then what happened? You want to hear the rest of the story?
Yeah.
So then, yeah, so I arrived at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and everybody was out on Sankirtan. They were outside chanting Hare Krishna in public. That's what they did every day.
Honolulu.
Yeah. Not everybody. There were a couple of people that, but almost everybody was out. And then they came back about 5:30 or 6, and they were so charged up. They had so much energy that it was like, wow, you know, really intense. I'd seen devotees on Harinam a couple of times, but I never experienced it. So anyhow, they were really charged up. And they came back, and everybody was moving really fast. Their their regimen was to come back from Harinam. Everybody takes a quick shower. Now in that temple, taking a quick shower was very easy because the temple president didn't believe in hot water. And he also didn't believe in soap. Now without hot water and without soap, there's not very much you can do in a shower. Doesn't take very long. Turn it on, turn it off, that's it. So they take a quick shower, and then they had then they would take prasadam. Prasadam was also very quick. And there was never enough time to take prasadam. Never. Because, you know, everybody was really hungry. We were, you know, 23 years old, you know, and you know, we had big appetites. But there was never time because we all had to be in the temple room at 7 o'clock for the program. So, you know, everybody at the last minute washing their hands. It was absolute must. You had to be in the temple room. So they were washing their hands very quickly, and they just left their prasadam on the table because they didn't have time to do anything with it. It was just left there. And everybody goes to the temple room for kirtan and then a short class. Then 8 o'clock, everybody's running around again. And I'm thinking, you know, I was, you know, from an impersonalist yoga society, peace, love, you know, just, I wanted to be peaceful, but these people were just really fired up, you know. And I thought, what's going on? My head was spinning, you know. And one of the brahmacharis sees me standing there spinning. And he says, you, stop right there. Take off your trousers. Whoa, what? He very quickly, before he even knew what was happening, put a dhoti on me. Right? Then he said, now, take off your glasses. You know, tilak, right? Okay, now I had tilak, I had a dhoti, and then we all jump in the van and we go downtown to Waikiki to chant Hare Krishna. That was their schedule. Every day, out chanting from 11 in the morning till I think it was 6 in the evening. And then back out again from 8 until 10 at night. That was the schedule 6 days a week. 8 until 10 was a great time in Waikiki because everybody was getting ready for a sense enjoyment. So anyway, then, yeah. And then this chanting, the kirtan, I mean, it was just incredible. I'd never experienced anything like this. I was standing off to the side and I was looking at the chanting party, and I mean, Waikiki. Who's been to Waikiki? Anybody? You haven't missed anything. We had a spot to sit right in front of a place called the International Marketplace, probably one of the most degraded places in the world. Everybody comes there for the purpose of sense gratification. Everybody's drunk and stoned and half dressed, and you know, like these local Hawaiian guys come along with a pole and a you know, a roasted pig hanging on the pole. You know, I was like, oh God, the whole place was just, and it was just disgusting. The smells were disgusting. The most disgusting place I've ever been, probably. But this chanting party looked like it was in a transcendental bubble. I was amazed. And I saw that people were stopping. And they seemed to be stopping involuntarily. It wasn't like they were stopping because they were curious and they were just, you know, like, oh, what's this? You know, it wasn't like people stop at the lion's cage at the zoo or something like that. They were stopping like this, you know, frozen. And therefore I had realization of what the devotees had been telling me, that they said that how the sound vibration goes right to the soul. And I could see that was happening. These people didn't want to be attracted to us. They didn't have time to intellectualize it. They were just, the sound vibration was going straight to the soul. Then, for people who were more interested, the devotees were distributing our Back to Godhead magazines. Now, these devotees had been telling me that this is the highest welfare work. And I was always looking for some way to do good for people. You know. And when I saw this, when I had this experience, I thought, it just hit me. This is the highest welfare work. Because it's not just something to patch up the body. Or it's not just some mental thing. You know, usually when people want to do welfare, it's something for the body, physical body, or something for the mind, or, right? But this was so obviously right to the soul. And it just clicked with me. This is the highest welfare work. I was convinced. And I just decided right then, this is how I want to spend my life. So then, we got back to the temple at 10 o'clock. The van driver, actually, he picked us up at exactly 5 minutes to 10. It was 5 minutes drive to the temple. We got to the temple at 10 o'clock. And there were two brahmacharis shaving their heads in the garage. The reason the garage was because if you open the door to the garage, then the light of the moon comes and they can shave their head because the electricity wasn't working. So anyway, they asked me if I wanted to shave my head. So I thought, well, I got the dhoti, I got the tilak, and I already decided this is how I want to spend my life. So sure, why not? So I got my first shaved head with a secret. That was after having my first visit to a Hare Krishna temple. I'd been there a total of 8 hours. Unfortunately, the devotee who shaved my head, he wasn't so expert, so it was kind of on top, you know, like this. Made me look like a woodpecker or a pineapple. You know. And also because the razor wasn't really sharp enough, so there's like a battlefield. You know, a pineapple in the middle of a battlefield. You know. And the next day, my full-time service was Sankirtan. I hadn't even been there 24 hours, and already I was like a full-time Sankirtan devotee. Anyhow, this is a side point. How did I get on this topic? Yeah, so the point I was making was that if you give everything to Krishna, it's fantastic because you don't have anything left to decide to use in sense gratification. It's great. Use everything. Don't worry. Intelligence, money, body, clothes, time, energy, car, whatever. Use it all for Krishna and you're protected. That's the point that Prabhupada's making here. A person in Krishna consciousness has no opportunity to engage his senses in anything which is not for the purpose of Krishna. And that's yoga. Because yoga means to be united with the Supreme. You're united with the Supreme. Yeah, it's very easy. Yeah, Prabhupada says here, if one is unable to give up the activities of his selfish nature, selfish meaning me, I, you know, everything for me. This is what most people are thinking, right? All the time. You know, how do I get this? How do I enjoy that? And then me this, I that, my this, right? All day long, this is what people are thinking. This is their mantra, right? So, but if he can't give that up, and so-called yoga, hatha yoga, this and that, speculation, reading, whatever, it's not going to be any use. But when we absorb ourselves in Krishna consciousness, we become blissful, we become happy. We get a higher taste of pleasure. It's automatic, right? No problem. Let's say, for instance, let's say a child. Just like, let's say, yesterday, what's his name? Arjuna, right? Arjuna was perfectly happy, right? Inga? I mean, he spent, I don't know how many hours.
6 hours, 6-7 hours.
You know, I mean, like all day, just playing with his toys, right? How old is Arjuna? 4. So he was perfectly happy, no problem. I mean, I've rarely experienced that. A kid who is so peaceful, and just, you know, just put him in another room and he just keeps himself engaged. What's your secret? Maybe you should write a book, tell other mothers. They'll probably want to know, because none of them have kids like that, I guarantee you. Anyway, he was really peaceful for hours and hours and hours. He didn't get into one bit of trouble, did he? None, zero. Because he was engaged in something that he enjoyed doing, right? When we took the break, I saw he had this whole train system all set up. I don't know where it came from, like magic. So he's perfectly happy that way. A 4-year-old child is happy just playing with its toys. But as he gets older, like especially puberty, right? You know what puberty is, Anton? Okay, when he gets to puberty, then he discovers girls, right? And then his taste changes. And generally, unless he's a homosexual, generally nobody has to, train him that he has to go out and chase girls. Somehow or other it's just automatic. I don't know how it happens. But he automatically becomes interested in girls. What happened to the toys? Completely forgot about them, right? Because he found something that he considered more pleasurable, right? Watch out for this, Inga, it's coming. So it's like that. You get a higher taste of pleasure, then naturally the lower taste, the more childish taste, falls away, right? The pleasures of the material world are like that. They're childish. They're childish pleasures. They're not very important and they're not very pleasurable, really. But when we get a higher taste of pleasure in Krishna consciousness, we lose interest. We just gradually lose interest. It's not forced at all. The more we can engage our everything, our mind, intelligence, money, time, energy, everything in Krishna's service, the more we feel this higher taste of pleasure. And the things that previously seemed to be so important to us, we just aren't as interesting, right? Whatever it was, it's just not as interesting, that's all. Because why? We become more mature spiritually. Just like the boy, he becomes more mature physically, so his taste changes. And if his mother says, no, let's say 10 years from now, Inga, if you tell Arjuna, now Arjuna, I see you're spending a lot of time chasing girls, but actually you should be playing with your toys. He's just, he looks at her like she's nuts. Why do I have to play with my toys? I don't want to play with my toys. He has no taste for it anymore. So in the same way, when we develop a taste for Krishna consciousness, we don't care about the other stupid things. Like when we're materially attached and conditioned, these things seem really, really important. It's a big deal, right? Material sense gratification, it's like very serious, right? But when you become Krishna consciousness, it just seems silly. It's just childish. So, but again, it's a natural process. It's a natural process of maturing, spiritually maturing. And that comes from hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. Studying Srila Prabhupada's books, chanting Hare Krishna in the association of devotees, and of course taking prasad. And engaging in other kinds of devotional service. So that's the whole point. It's a very natural process. It's not forced. When we talk about renunciation, it's not something artificial or uncomfortable or anything like that. But it's connecting us, it's connecting us to the Supreme. Therefore it's blissful. Why? Why is it blissful when we get connected with Krishna, with the Supreme?
Because it's our natural position.
Because our natural position, what else?
We let go of the material energy.
What?
We let go of the material energy.
We let go of the material energy, what else?
Give up the suffering.
Give up the suffering, what else?
Experience real joy.
Experience real joy. Why?
Giving up, trying to enjoy separately from Krishna.
Trying to enjoy it separately from Krishna, you're missing an important point.
It's eternal joy.
Eternal joy, why?
Because Krishna is eternal.
We are
And Krishna is eternal and
Krishna is
Blissful.
and he's blissful. He's always enjoying. Right? When you connect with the Supreme Enjoyer, you enjoy too. Right? That's why. Because Krishna is always enjoying. He's always happy. He never has a bad day. You know, Krishna's always happy all the time. It's unbelievable. You know, we don't know anybody like that. And yeah, Krishna's never depressed. He doesn't have any psychological problems. So when we connect with Krishna, because he's always happy, then we also become happy. You want to hear another story about Prabhupada?
Yeah.
See, in the early days of ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada was, he was into the details of practically everything. He had to be. Because, you know, I mean, you know, these people, he just got off the street, you know, a bunch of monkeys. You know, just yesterday they were drug addicts, practically. And so he had to pay attention to every detail of everything. And one of the things he was really into was the paintings. He considered the paintings really, really important. He called them windows to the spiritual world. And one time there was this devotee named Bharadraj. Bharadraj was a really good artist, and he was also a really good kirtan leader. Now at that time devotees were making recordings of kirtans too. That we had a studio. So this must have been, let's see, this was probably early 70s, maybe 70, 71, 72, 73, something like that, early 70s. So yeah, we had a recording studio. So anyhow, Prabhupada wanted all the artists to gather together. He wanted to meet with all the BBT artists. I don't know how many there were, maybe 6 or 8, something like that. So then, at the beginning of the meeting, Prabhupada said, "Where is Bharadraj?" So somebody said, "Well, Srila Prabhupada, he's in the studio leading a kirtan, they're recording kirtan." And Prabhupada said, "Leading kirtan?" He said, "Anybody can lead kirtan." He said, but not anybody can paint." So he said, "Go get him." Now another time, all the artists were gathered together, and each artist had his canvas, his or her canvas, to present to Srila Prabhupada what he or she had been working on, right? Now, they already knew, Prabhupada had already told them, that whatever you paint, it has to depict a particular pastime, a particular scene from my books, you know, from Krishna's pastimes, or Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. Has to be, well, in those days we didn't have Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, not so much. But anyhow, it has to depict a particular scene from the scriptures. Everybody knew that. So one of the ladies brought her canvas, and it showed Krishna looking like this. And then off in the distance, you could see Radharani. And Prabhupada looked really concerned when he saw this. He said, "What is this? What pastime is this?" And so the girl said, "Well, Srila Prabhupada, this was when Radharani left the rasa dance, and Krishna's depressed." Prabhupada said, "No." He said, "Krishna's never depressed." So he was obviously displeased. So now the artist was depressed. So anyhow, you know, just like Radharani went off in the distance, so she went off in the distance. And so then Prabhupada went on to the other paintings. But obviously Prabhupada noticed that this girl was a little bit, you know, I mean, you can imagine she probably spent weeks making this painting. It's not so simple. Weeks and weeks making the painting, you know. And in those days they worked full time, really full time, like 8 hours a day, right? So Prabhupada said, "Well, bring me that painting again." He said, "Let me look at that again." So he looked at it and he said, "Well," he said, "we can use this one to depict when Krishna had a headache." So in this way he saved his disciple from suicide or something. I don't know. There's a story that one time Krishna had a headache. Didn't happen very often. Actually, I only heard it one time when he had a headache. And in those days there was no paracetamol. You have paracetamol here?
Yes.
Yeah. There was no paracetamol, so but he had an idea for a cure. And so he told one of his devotees that he should go out and ask the pure devotees for the dust from their lotus feet. And then if he puts that on his head, it will cure his headache. So this assistant, he went to some devotees and he told them the situation. And they said, "Are you kidding?" You know, because in Vedic culture, the feet are considered very dirty. And they are very dirty. I mean, usually when we have a problem at our Sunday programs with sometimes the guests smell bad, it's always the feet. You know, go out there and smell. I mean, sometimes it's really atrocious. But anyway, so the feet are considered the lowest part of the body, especially in Vedic culture. So they said, "No, are you kidding? If I put the dust from my feet on Krishna's head, I'll go to hell. I'm not going to give the dust from my feet." But then this assistant went to the gopis. And the gopis, their mood is they do anything for Krishna. And so when they heard about this, they started dancing in the dust of Vrindavan, making as much dust as possible. And then they got wheelbarrows to carry the dust. You know what wheelbarrows are? Huh? Dimitri, tell them what wheelbarrows are. They were just wild, making so much dust and loading up wheelbarrows and here, take it all. So this assistant was really surprised, and he said, "But aren't you worried that if you put dust from your feet on Krishna's head, you'll go to hell?" "No problem. We'll go to hell. We don't care. If it pleases Krishna, we'll go to hell." This is the mood of the gopis. If it makes Krishna happy, that's fine. We don't care. If it makes us unhappy, no problem. Not everybody's a gopi. But anyway. So, what was the point I was making? Got talking about the artist. Oh, Krishna's never depressed. Krishna's always happy. Therefore, if we want to be happy, all we have to do is connect to Krishna. And it's instantaneous, just like that. No problem. The only problem is, the only question is whether or not we will actually do that. But whether we will actually take that choice to chant Hare Krishna, to put ourselves under Krishna's control, to serve Krishna. That's the only factor. Nothing else is a factor. In the scriptures it says there are no impediments to pure devotional service. Got that? None. Zero. No impediments to pure devotional service. What? What's that? Impediment. Obstacle. It's in here. Sorry. This purport is fantastic. There's just so much stuff in here. We could probably give about 16 classes on this. Anyhow, I promise I'll end soon. Those of you who are getting bored. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so as Srila Prabhupada says here at the end, says all purposes are perfectly served by Krishna consciousness. All purposes, whatever your purpose is, whatever your need is, whatever your desire is, whatever you feel is lacking, it's all satisfied by Krishna consciousness. And if it seems like it's not being satisfied by Krishna consciousness, it means your practice of Krishna consciousness, there's something wrong with it. There's something wrong with your practice of Krishna consciousness, and you need to make an adjustment. But the reality is that Krishna is the absolute truth. Everything is within Krishna. Krishna is within everybody, and everything is satisfied by real Krishna consciousness. So therefore, we should apply ourselves seriously to Krishna consciousness and stop wasting time on other stupid stuff that has practically no relevance to our happiness. Okay? Everybody agree?
Yes.
All in favor, raise your hand. Anybody? Mataji in the back? Yeah. Yeah, okay. Good, because if you didn't raise your hand, you wouldn't get any prasadam. Okay, any questions? Yes.
It's just like Prabhu often using this picture of like you water the root of the tree instead of the leaf, because if you just
Yeah, water the root of the tree. Yeah.
so it's the same like if you nourish Krishna, then
Yeah.
everything is
Everything gets
automatic
taken care of.
to you.
Yeah. Yeah, you water the root of the tree, the leaves and branches are also watered. You don't have to water them individually, separately. Can you ask him not to talk, please? Whatever's talking is going on there.
No one's up there.
No one knows.
There was somebody out there just now.
Yeah, there is a person who just left the
Huh?
temple. The person just left the temple.
Okay, fine. Yes.
Question. You spoke about the spiritual energy and so as far as I understand, then the difference between the material world and the spiritual world is that in the spiritual world there is no matter. So there is only spirit there.
Yeah.
So there is nothing in between, kind of the living entities. Everything has life. So I'm not perplexed or anything, I'm not doubting or anything, but Krishna, he says he's covered by spiritual effulgence.
Yeah.
So,
Not covered by spiritually focused.
Well,
Brahmajyoti, you mean?
no, he says in the Bhagavad
Yoga
Gita-
Maya, you mean?
Yeah. So we're spiritual energy, so we're personal. Spiritual energy is personal.
Yes.
So the yoga mind is of course his effulgence. It's all pervading. And I'm just thinking that in the spiritual world, if like here there is in between us there is material energy, and in the spiritual world, in between the living entities, there is spiritual energy, or everything is spiritual, or
I don't understand.
you don't understand. I don't understand.
I was getting that impression that you don't know. I mean, first thing is Krishna. I don't. Do you know a statement where Krishna says he's covered by?
His spiritual energy?
Yeah.
There's a verse in Bhagavad Gita where he says that he's. Is it Avajananti Mamurama?
Yeah. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my higher nature, which is imperishable and supreme. That's Avajananti Mamurama. What is it?
Yoga Maya Samavita. Nam Prakasha Sarvasha Yoga Maya Samavita.
Which verse is that? The same verse?
Nam Prakasha Sarvasha. What verse is that?
My computer just fell into my own.
And there, so it says Yoga Maya Samavita, that he's covered by his, he's
Where is it?
where's that? You can look it up.
What chapter?
No, if you can look up in the index, there's Naham Prakasha Sarvasha.
It's chapter 7.
Chapter 7.
Yeah. Chapter 7.
Chapter 7, okay.
Yeah, like 19 or something like that. No, not 19. No, I know where it is. No, maybe you're right. It's chapter 9.
9?
Okay.
Naham Prakasha Sarvasha.
Oh, yeah, okay, 725. 725? No, yeah, I'm on, 725, yeah, that's right.
I never manifest fruition and intelligence, for I'm covered by my internal potency.
Yeah, but it said, oh, yeah, right, okay. I've never manifested for them, no, here's what he says. I never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them I am covered by my internal potency. In other words, because it doesn't mean that Krishna is really covered, but he seems to be covered. You understand?
Yeah, it's like the cloud and the sun. That it's not that the sun becomes covered.
Yeah, Krishna's not really covered. He just seems to be covered. From their perception, he seems to be covered. That's why he says, for them I am covered. From their perception I am covered. And therefore they do not know that I am unborn and infallible.
So, regarding spiritual energy and the spiritual world, that everything, spiritual energy has, I'm spiritual energy, I'm conscious. Spiritual energy is conscious.
Yes.
So there is no matter between, there's no matter to
No,
cover.
there's not.
So in the spiritual world, everything has life.
Yes.
So, but so a shoe and a shoelace, for instance, is the shoe has life, it's a person, and the lace also is a person. There's I'm wondering.
The thing is that the living entity is spirit,
Yes.
but tiny. And therefore there's the tendency to be covered.
But there's things in the spiritual world that has it all has life. It's
All
not
has
like-
life.
And a tree is, I mean, it doesn't have the whole body is spiritual. That's a living entity.
Yeah.
And
But the tree is a jiva soul.
it's a jiva.
And the jiva eternally has this tendency to be covered. Because it's tiny.
Yes. But I'm regarding the spiritual world that gravel on the road, water in the ocean. I mean, there's a lake. The lake is a person.
Okay.
Maybe it's off topic.
So,
So I'm
does anybody know what he's talking about? Can you-
There is a difference between life and consciousness.
I'm just
Well, there's
wondering
no
that
difference
maybe
between life and consciousness.
No, life is the embodiment of consciousness.
No, consciousness is the manifestation of life. Prabhupada
Yes,
said that you can
the reverse of.
you can understand that there's life by the consciousness is spread throughout the body.
Consciousness is universal.
Huh? Consciousness is a symptom of life.
Consciousness is symptom of self.
Okay. Does anybody have a question I can understand? Or that I can answer?
I was just thinking in the beginning you spoke about this, about using the quota, and I started thinking about
What was
You
that?
spoke about that we should only use, not use more than we need.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about the Isavasyam principle,
Yeah.
and I thought maybe you can share
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, there's a certain amount that's naturally allotted for us. And of course, everybody has different level of real need.
Prabhupada uses this example
What's that?
with the bird often, the bird and the food. Like a bird always, if there's a bag of grain, the bird just flies to take the grains it needs. It doesn't take the whole bag, you know. But the human,
Right.
we just take the whole bag and the
Yeah,
next bag
yeah,
and the third bag.
Yeah, we just take what we need in order to keep body and soul together, that's all. And if we take more, we suffer. That's the problem. Just take what we need to keep body and soul together and use our time and energy, intelligence and money and automobiles and whatever for serving Krishna, that's all. But, yeah, otherwise, you're stealing. You're a criminal, you're a thief. Just like one time, there was another Prabhupada story. Another time, one time there was a man, quite wealthy man, was visiting Mayapur when Prabhupada was there. And nice man, very pious, and somehow or other he got an audience with Prabhupada. I think they were on a morning walk or something. Yeah, you know the story? And if I say it wrong, you can correct me. Okay. But so Prabhupada was, quite chatty sometimes, especially with Indian people. And he said, "Oh, so what do you do?" He said, "Well, have my own company. And Prabhupada said, what is your company? He said, well, I manufacture glass. He said, oh, and what do you make the glass from? He said, well, we make it from sand. He said, and where do you get the sand? Well, we get it from the beach. He said, then who owns the beach? And who provided the sand? So gradually, like this, the guy got the idea because he was pious. He understood, well, it's being provided by God. He said, so what you're saying is that you're stealing the sand. So what you're saying is that you're a thief, right? Your business is stealing, right? And the man laughed because he understood the point. You know, he accepted the point. Yeah. If we use anything for sense gratification, it's stealing. You may dress it up with some fancy words, and maybe it's socially acceptable in modern society because everybody else is a thief. You know, but that doesn't make it right. Yeah, in a society of thieves, a thief doesn't stick out because everybody's a thief. But anything that we're not using for Krishna, we're stealing.
And Prabhupada,
That's the reality.
Prabhupada, he made that, because then he got a little defensive, this wealthy man, and he said, but I give charity.
Oh yeah, that was it. Yeah.
And then Prabhupada said, well, you're a small thief.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're a small thief.
That reminds me of that story with Alexander the Great and the thief.
Yeah, that was another story. Somebody was arrested for stealing, and I don't know. I think he stole a cucumber. Or he stole something small. I can't remember. And so Alexander brought the man before him. They brought him to Alexander and said, "So you've been accused of stealing." Of course, in those days, the punishment for stealing is you get your hands chopped off. And he said, did you steal? And he said, look. The thief said, "Look who's talking." He said, "I'm just stealing something small. You're stealing empires. What's the difference between me and you? You know, I'm a small thief. You're a big thief." Alexander thought it was a good argument. Let him go. Right? There's a Bengali saying. I forget how it goes. Somebody know this saying? I don't know the Bengali. Whether you steal a diamond or a cucumber, a thief is a thief. You know, like some people, they're making, they're making like $100,000 a year or something, right? And sometimes they come to the temple. Rarely. No, sometimes they do. They come to the temple and they stand in front of the deities and they try to look as pious as possible. Right? And they go like this. And then they put like, $2 in the donation box. The guy's making $100,000 a year. I mean, I don't know what I would do with $100,000. I don't think I could spend it in 50 lifetimes. Right? I mean, for me, $50 is a huge amount of money. But $100,000, so $98,000 for me, 2 for Krishna. And he considers that, really pious, real renunciation. No, you're making $100,000 is you give at least $50,000 to Krishna. So, anyway. Yeah, if we're not using it for Krishna, we're stealing. And the thing is, that's how we got to this world. Because we're criminals. So we should give up our criminal activities and get rectified. I don't know what's wrong with my computer.